In this episode, I have a Panasonic AGHVX200. This is what they called a hybrid digital camera. It has a DV tape transport that will record in DVCPro in standard definition. It's a 3-chip camcorder with a nice lens on it. It also records in HD, but only to their proprietary P2 cards, and this one has a problem with the video output. Let's check it out. So what I've got here is I've got a DVCPro HD camera, Panasonic, and it's got a big, I'm just going to remove this so it doesn't get damaged. It's got a fisheye lens on it, which I'm going to just put away for safekeeping, as I don't need that on the camera, adding extra weight to it while I'm working on it. This one here is, well, there's a problem with this camera, and the problem is there's no output, or the ports are damaged. Now here's something weird about this. If we look at this viewfinder, you'll see that the viewfinder is actually black and white. Yet if I switch the camera over to, say, tape playback, it's color. So it's a color viewfinder that they have. When you're previewing your video signal, it's black and white when you're looking at the actual camera. As far as operating the camera, it shows in black and white. Of course, the flip out screen is color, but that's not the problem. The problem is the ports on the side. So the video out port has got a problem. See, it cuts in and out. So that's why the camera's here. It's because the video out jack on the side is bad, and that's what it's here to be repaired for. The rest of the camera, to my knowledge, is not a problem. It works fine. Just the output jack. This camera could operate in HD as well as standard definition, but unlike the competitor's camera, such as Sony used HDV. It would record high definition onto tape. This one here would record only high definition onto the memory cards, which were called P2 memory cards. They're not compact flash, they're not SD, they are proprietary, expensive memory cards that you had to buy from Panasonic. And if you wanted to plug them into the computer, you had to buy a separate P2 card reader. They were kind of like, they're closer to resemble like the PCMCIA cards that some computers used. They're just these long slotted cards that you put in there, and you could put 2 of them in. And you selected it on the back here, whether you're going to record onto tape or onto the P2 card. If you're recording onto P2 card, if I'm not mistaken, it will do 720 or 1080. We can certainly check that out. So if I press the menu button here, go down to recording setup and select there, and indeed it can record 1080i as a 1080i recording on the memory card. It could also record 1080i as a 30 progressive, right? It could record a 1080i signal as a 24 progressive. It's still recording. The format being recorded on here is still 1080i. It's just that it's doing the conversion, 30 progressive or 24 progressive. 24 or 1080i from 24 progressive. What's that? Amorphic, I guess it is, for a wider screen. It'll do 720p at 60 frames, 720p at 30 frames, 720p at 24 frames, 720 30pn, 24 PM, 480i, 480i, 30p, 480i, 24p, 480i, 24pa. So these are the different modes that it could operate in. That's when you're dealing with the P2 cards. Now if I switch this over on the back here, it'll probably tell me I got to power it down, which it does. You got to turn off the power, turn it back on, and when you're dealing with tape, it only works in standard definition mode. So go to menu, try to go down to recording setup again, and you'll see that the only option that's offered on there is, well, you get 480i at 60 interlaced, 30 progressive, 24 progressive. It's just converting 24p back to 480i to be recorded as a DV type signal onto a mini DV tape, although this one I think would record in DVCPro, which is a higher bit rate than the consumer mini DV, but still It's in tape mode. It's strictly standard definition. Color bars on here standard, which is nice. Shutter speed control. And you can change your shutter speed here. And all the other bells and whistles that you would expect on a professional level camera. And this, make no mistake, this is a professional level camera. It has a nice lens on it. I really like the lens on here because it's a full mechanical zoom. We've got a servo for the focus, but the zoom itself is mechanical. I do like that feature on it. 4.2 to 55 millimeter, and it's a 3 CCD camera. So for what it did, it actually did a pretty good job. And if you ran the P2 cards, it would provide a respectable high definition picture. And a lot of these cameras were used by local news media for that reason, because they were relatively small and delivered a good enough picture for broadcast, especially when you were in HD mode. And you know, some of the local TV stations actually were running these. Some of them may still be running some of these now for recording, and they're recording straight onto the P2 memory cards. It's got tape in it, but nobody's using the tape. To get to the tape, you just open this up here, and there's the regular mini DV tape transport. Anyway, we're going to look at the ports on here because that's where the problem is. I'm not quite sure how to get into this thing yet. I got to kind of study it for a bit, but it should be relatively easy, I think, to get into the ports. It looks like it's just a connection problem on here. That's what the hope is. It's just going to be a broken connection on the port, and I can fix that up and get this one going. Just poking around in the camera settings, and I find display setup, and I go into display setup, and oh, look at that. You can turn on the color on the electronic viewfinder. If I can figure out what button to push here. There we go. Now I should have a color AVF, which I do. Excellent. So it can switch to color. Why anybody would have it set to black and white, I don't know. Doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, I guess it's for the old school shooters that were used to the black and white tube. But there was a reason they had black and white monitors on cameras. It's because a CRT is much sharper than an LCD. Regardless whether the LCD is running in color mode or black and white, the resolution is the same. So anyway, this can be switched, which is kind of nice. I say, not a bad little camera for recording with the P2 cards. It would be great because it's got your pro features such as XLR inputs and so forth on it. So it's got a lot of neat features. Anyway, I'm just going to power this thing down, and we'll see what we can do to get into this unit to check out that connector. Being a pro model, it's designed, I'm sure, to be taken apart. So we'll just start removing screws and see what happens when I take out a bunch of screws. This side cover, I'm hoping, will just pop right off. What does this say? SD? I can put an SD card in this thing too? Oh, wow. Well, that's cool. I'll have to put an SD card in there and see whether this will record onto SD cards. This is looking better. This is looking better all the time. The P2 cards were good, but they were expensive, like really expensive. I've seen a couple of these up on the market, and they've been not that expensive. Like in the last couple months, I've seen a few of them come up for, you know, $400 or $500. And someone's going to say that's way too low. Hey, I'm just telling you what I saw advertised on Facebook Marketplace. There's been a couple of them that have come up over the last little while that have not been all that expensive. In fact, I was almost tempted to snag one myself, but I need another camera like I need a hole in the head, because I got plenty. I see some more screws down here. I'm hoping that this cover will pop off. It's got good access to the transport. And no problems in here. The pinch roller looks to be in good shape on this one. No clip breaking off on this like that Canon. A few more goodies I found on here is under here there's got component video out as well as S video out under this little cover. Got all kinds of goodies on here. I'm hoping if I take out a few of these screws that this whole thing will come out. It's loose now. This whole panel should lift out to reveal the back side where I'm expecting that there may be some cracked solder connections. So just going to figure out what I got to take out. There's one or two more screws I think that got to come out that's holding this panel in place. Right now it's loose, so this whole piece should lift out, but I may have to take this top piece off to get at it. Okay, this lift off, that lifts off now, and there's one more screw down here that holds this piece on. I think this will lift off now. Will this lift out of here now? It should. And of course there's a ribbon cable on here. We gotta disconnect this screw here that holds this ribbon cable in place. And I don't need to take it right off. I just need to flip it out of the way just enough so that I can see what's going on here. And I think this will lift out now, if I'm not mistaken. What's holding it up? Is there something on the bottom that's holding it up? Maybe. Maybe I got to pull this bottom piece off. And maybe it might be easier to pull the bottom off here because it looks like it might be getting hung up on this base. So I'm just going to take out the screws on the bottom. And that bottom comes off. Just put these screws for the bottom over here. Now this should lift out of here, I hope. Oh, I got it. Yeah, there we go. Undo the clip up here. Lift that out. That's on a... There we go. Alright, now here is the jack block, and let's just check this out and see where the problem is. It could be the actual port itself. It might be the contacts on the port, but let's just see. I'm just going to wiggle things around here and see whether I see anything broken. Here I've got my meter connected. If I touch the pin here, if I touch here, I got no continuity. So the jack itself definitely has a problem. I wonder if I can fix it. We'll take this apart. I'm going to pull these boards off of here just so that I can get down to this level and see what's going on with it. Now this has got a switch on here. Could be the jack itself that's cracked on the other side. Like it could be the jack itself that's bad, right? That's what I wonder. So I'm going to see if I can get into this and just see where the problem is. I guess I got to remove these. Got to remove these connectors. Those ones are on a little tighter. A bigger screwdriver is going to be required for that. This was probably screwed down to the cabinet as well, is it not? No, it's not. Okay. So will this pop out now or not? Okay, come out like that. And this one should also pop out of here, I would think. One less thing to worry about breaking. Ribbon cable. If I can get it out of the way. Oh, I got the stupid connector here is in the way. There we go. Okay, that's one out now. There's another couple screws on here to hold this one in place. Or at least one more screw that holds this one in place. And now I should be able to remove this board. Should be able to. Doesn't mean I will. There we go. That'll pop out there. All right, now here are the jacks. So if we look at the audio jacks, that one's good. And that one's good, but the video jack is no good. I'm just going to remove the actual block assembly from the board so I can get a look on the other side of this, because it might be the connection, the pin from the jack that's going through, that's cracked on the other side or broken. This is exactly what I thought was going to be the problem. This is broken free. It'll pop right out. See, that's broken off. So if I can pull this whole jack panel out, I might be able to fix it by just soldering a wire onto the other side of it. Just have to carefully pop this out of here. So I've unsoldered it. And there's where the problem is, right there. You see? The wire broke off that goes through to connect it. And there's the remainder of it right there. That's the fault. So to fix this jack, I have to solder a wire onto here and then bring it back through the board. And that should get this piece working, get this jack working again. Yes, I've seen this happen before. That's why I went down to this level on it, right? Normally you just replace this as a piece, but good luck finding one of these now. They're easy enough to repair. It's just a broken wire after all. And you have continuity. So now I can just put this back on the board and reassemble. There we go, everything's reconnected and it's ready to go back together. So let's start the reassembly process. First, this one goes into place. I have to make sure that these switches are in the correct orientation. Okay, that works. There's that one in place. Now we'll do the same for the other one up here. With a zero insertion force, we flip that open and put the cable in and flip it shut. Connected. This should go in relatively easy, I would think. It's got to go over that little post there, which it did. That'll drop on there like that, and I should be able to plug this connector in now that I know how it comes apart. Get the gate open. Just insert the connector and close the gate. Not a lot of room here to work, but I'm sure I'll manage. Okay, this is together enough so far that I can test it, so I'll just plug the video jack in and the camera is on. And I got a picture, and it doesn't cut out now when I move it around. So that's good. Okay, I can put the camera back together now. Got a connector on the bottom here. I wonder what that's for. It's got a couple connectors on the bottom. I wonder what that's for. Oh well. Not that it matters to me anyway. I'm just curious as to what they're for. Obviously for testing things, for hooking up stuff for testing. That's what they're there for. Anyway, bottom goes back on. And then top side. And then we'll do a final test. Make sure everything's working, and I'll even test out that SD card because I would really be interested to see whether it records to SD or it only records to, I mean, it's got to record to SD, unless that's for setup or something else, or maybe it only records standard definition to SD. I don't know. I've never played with one of these cameras before. I've got a 4K camera, a Sony 4K camera, and I've got a Sony 3-chip HDV which records in high definition, but it records only to tape, not to SD card. And that would make it the ultimate if it did both. Although it's 1080i, I think it only does 1080i, but I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it only does 1080i. It does like a quasi convert to 1080p. But it's not true 1080p. It's 1080i. Like it has a quasi 30p, but recorded at 1080i. I guess that's what I was attempting to say. Is it doesn't record full 1080p, which is what this is recorded. Like I'm recording this in 1080p. But this is going right to an SD card. At I think I'm running it at like 28 megabits is what I'm running at, and it can go to 50. If I were to crank it up, I can go as high as 50. Okay, I'm going to put the rest of these screws in and try not to drop any into the transport while I'm at it. That could be a disaster, fishing a screw out of a transport. Alright, I'm just going to put this together, and we'll pick this up once I got all the rest of the screws back in. Still a few to go. So I'll put an SD card in. And we'll see what this does. I have no idea whether it's going to work with this SD card. It's just a small 16 gig Class 10, which should work fine. All right, media. Let's just see what happens here. I mean, maybe the SD card's not even for recording video, but let's see here. I'll switch it to P2 media. It probably won't do anything. Like that SD card might only be there for doing software updates as far as I know. But we'll see. We'll see what it does. Okay. If I hit the record button, will it record? I guess it doesn't record on SD. What the hell's the SD card there for then? Maybe it's just for software updates because it's not doing nothing. It's just flashing that there's no card. There's a little X up there, so I guess it only works with P2 media cards. Well, that kind of makes it useless. In my eyes, this is useless because buying the expensive P2 cards and then the expensive P2 card reader, it makes it kind of useless. It's got to be, you got to use the standard, which is SD cards these days, and it has been with Sony forever. Well, this is kind of stupid as far as I'm concerned. I think this is dumb, but then hey, what do I know? The SD card on here is only used, according to the instruction manual I've got here, it's used to store the clip data that is stored on the P2 card. So the P2 card is only storing the video, it's not storing any of the other data. That data is being stored on an SD card so that you can take the SD card out with your memory cards, and when you dump it into your nonlinear editing, it will pull the information from the SD card. It looks that way. So yeah, it saves and loads the scene files and user files, according to this from page 57. That's what the SD card is for. That's what would show up if I had a P2 card in here. The clips would show up. It stores clips on the SD card, which kind of stupid. Why would they not store it on the same card? At least Sony got that right. Sony does the same thing. I have all my little thumbnails, right? But they're stored on the SD card with the video as separate files that the camera then can pull up. So when I put my camera in playback mode, I get a little thumbnail of all my clips, and it's stored on the SD card, which is of course what the recording is being made on. So this is kind of useless. Rather than store it right on the card themselves, they're storing it on an SD card. So that answers that question, and that makes me think that this camera is well, not one that I would be buying. Let's play back the recording I made onto tape and make sure that it actually worked. It's gonna work. It's gonna work. So I don't have any sound on here, so I'll just plug the camera in and select playback and put the camera in play and rewind. And there's what I recorded. So yes, it's working, and that's really all that matters, is that it works. Video jack itself is nice and solid. Now I can wiggle it around, nothing happens. So we're good. This one's fixed. It only took me half the day to get this thing apart, figure it out. I guess I can throw the client's tape back in. They had tapes in the camera when they brought them here, so I'll throw the client's tape back in and shut it off. Everything's good to go. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.